So what is a guarantee? Because when I need to describe the value add to a company like Uber, and it's not about decentralization anymore, because that would cancel them out, the value add has to be defined differently. And I define the value add of our public blockchain as this. You can create an app that gives blockchain-based guarantees to your users and partners. What is a guarantee? I'll give you an example that is non-technological. One guarantee, for example, can be transparency. For example, when McDonald's wanted to become more healthy, one of the guarantees they want to give their customers is look at our ingredients. So they printed the ingredients in all the boxes. So here's a big step towards your customers, that you take something that you didn't have to share and you share it. So data transparency is a good guarantee. Another guarantee could be no lock-in, for example. You could leave me at any time and I will not keep you locked in. And if I try to think of an analog example out of the traditional world, 30-day money-back guarantee for retail. You know, when you go and you buy a book in the store, you can return it in 30 days. And this guarantee doesn't make sense if you think about it. Why? Because it costs money to the company. But when a company gives this guarantee, it becomes more competitive. And after a while, when everybody gives this guarantee, it becomes a standard. So even though it is more expensive to give these guarantees, the customers at the end of the day demand it. Why? Because it makes these companies better and more competitive. So the idea here is we can scale this idea with technology. We can take these guarantees and we can incorporate them into their products, and therefore we could make better products. So let me give you an example. For example, let's take eBay, another mainstream company, and I'll give you an example using the transparency guarantee. So eBay, for example, they have a bidding mechanism. You know, you can have an auction and people bid on the auction. So eBay have no interest in lying in this auction. Like, they want to be honest. What I would go and tell them that, look, guys, like, if you're not trying to cheat there, why won't you just take the bidding algorithm and run it on blockchain? Run it in a decentralized way, this algorithm only, so you could see all the bids, you could see how the algorithm chose the winner, and everybody could have more trust in how you run it. And since you're not trying to cheat, it's not going to cost you anything. And the answer that they would give me, up until, like, they would say, I'm afraid of blockchain. That would be one, and that is the education. But the other answer is usually it's too expensive. Because if you want to run something like this on Ethereum, it would cost you a whole lot. But what I think we could do today is we can reduce the costs. So it costs pretty much kind of like running it centralized. Because even when they run it centralized, they do have redundancy and duplication, that the data is duplicated multiple times. I think we can get to the same area codes of cost. So running these parts on blockchain would give more transparency to their users, and it would add value. But when I give you these examples, they sound very small. It sounds very niche. Like, I don't see a lot of value from running the bidding system of eBay. But it's part of the idea. It's a disruptive technology. Like, we don't know the killer use cases. It's kind of like being in the internet like 30 years ago. Like 30 years ago, I wouldn't be able to tell you that 40% of the internet is going to be Netflix. Like, nobody knew that. So the only thing I can give you is like a general direction. Like, these guarantees are big. Why is transparency big? Because look, transparency helped McDonald's transform its entire brand. Why is no lock-in big? Look, it transformed retail. 30-day money-back guarantee changed the entire field. I feel that we can find these guarantees in their products. The use cases that we're going to start from are going to be small.
Yeah.
But over the years, we're going to figure out bigger and bigger use cases. I can give you more use cases if you want, or we can jump to the technology.
So the use cases seem clear. I think that, like, the eBay one is a very good example. Like you said, it's not it's
a big value one,
but it's a clear, obvious case. I guess I'm still struggling to see. I can see from you, a big part of what you're offering actually is your vision for blockchain, and your I guess what I'm struggling to see is what you need Orbs for in those cases, those examples that you gave. That you couldn't do with other existing ones. Like, talk about money, the cost on Ethereum. My understanding is that Ethereum is working hard to improve scalability and reduce costs.
Or also, just to follow up, what these companies couldn't do just by publishing data, essentially, as well. So
perfect. Two perfect questions, and I'll give each of you one answer, and I'll start with you regarding, like, why do you need even blockchain to do that? Like, that is what you asked. Why can't they just publish the data? You're right. So let's talk for 1 second about the difference between a promise and a guarantee. A promise says, trust me, don't worry, like I'm going to do what I'm saying. I'm not going to raise prices. I'm going to publish the data, and the data is authentic. But we do know that there is a difference with a guarantee. A guarantee is something that I can't take back, even if I want to. And to do that, you need technology. And to have a guarantee, basically, you need somebody external to your app to give the guarantee. And when you ask yourself, who can I trust to give the guarantee? Like people can say, okay, go to a law firm or go to an accountant and have them sign off on the data. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. But I would say people don't trust that anymore. Number one. Number two, it doesn't scale. It's too expensive. Like you can't have an accountant go over every bid on eBay. So you need someone external. And when you want someone external, the question is, who will we choose? And this is where the permissionless aspect, I talked about the permissionless aspect being the core value of blockchain. So I need to explain Uber, why do they need something permissionless? And you need something permissionless because these are the guys giving the guarantee. It's a permissionless incentives model. The guarantee is given by somebody incentivized to do the right thing. It doesn't matter who it is. And that's why you need a token ecosystem for these companies. That's what you need the proof of stake model. Because the validators who are giving those guarantees effectively, and they are incentivized by the proof of stake model to do the right thing. And they are permissionless. And this is the reason why these companies can't do it themselves. They can do it themselves, but they would be promises. If they want to do it externally, like the highest form is to use an economic incentive to make sure that these guarantees are given, and you can only do this permissionlessly using a public blockchain. So that is the answer of why blockchain. Now, the second answer is why Orbs. So first of all, there aren't so many public blockchains out there. You know, and in my eyes, the use cases are huge. They're going to be everywhere. It's not niches. So first of all, I think it's great that there are 30 public blockchains that do infrastructure. And I think there is place in the world for all 30 to succeed. So the number is still small, and it's very hard for new companies to create public blockchains. Why? Because Google and Facebook cannot do public blockchain. And why is that? Because they would not have a token economy. Facebook and Google would not, even Facebook that has Facebook coin, I don't know anything about it, but something tells me that it's going to be a stable coin. It has to be a stable coin or the regulators would not allow them to do it. There is a very big regulatory problem with tokens and only startups that have that are not afraid of regulatory risk can do these projects. So I don't see Amazon doing a token economy for a permissionless something. So the number of companies that can give these token economies is small. Like there are 30 companies around the world, Cosmos, Polkadot are some of them, we are some of them. And I think there are so many use cases, we're just starting, that there's space for everybody. Where does Orbs excel? Like what part of this pie do we try to focus on? So first of all, you mentioned cost, and I think cost is the most important thing. If you compare infrastructures, you know, and you mentioned that you are software engineers, so let's take the database field, for example. You have database infrastructure like for 40 years. How does databases work? So like the competition starts usually on technology. Like I can do a database that does this and this fast, that can index this much data. So like in the first years, all the battle is between Oracle and whoever, and who can index more data and whose algorithms are faster. But after a few years, it kind of balances out and everybody has the same technology and the same speed and the same scale. So you have no differentiator on technology anymore. And I think this is what's starting to happen in blockchain. So, you know, technologically speaking, everybody is as fast, everybody is going to have the same throughput. Like, I'm not going to tell you we have more transactions per second than them. Everybody's going to be in the same area code. So what is the next area of competition after you finished competing over technology? So I would say number two, if I take databases as something to learn from 40 years ago, was price. So in databases, licensing fees, for example, you used to pay $1 million a year to use some sort of database. After a while, databases became open source and the licensing became free, and you started paying for professional services or something else. So I think this is going to be the next big battle over cost. The third battle is going to be over ecosystem size and community size, because ecosystems and contributions, but I think it's going to be number three. That's what happened with databases. You know, like today, when you choose a database, first of all, you would choose a database that makes sense cost-wise in the same area code, and only after that you would choose the one that has the biggest community around it. So what I see in the market now in other blockchain solutions is that people jumped from the technology, from number one. You know, we battled on technology in the last 2 years. Like, I'm doing more transactions per second than you. Like, this was a battle, and people jumped right over to number three. Number 3 is my community is bigger than yours. I have more developers. I have whatever more. And that is good, but that is number 3. And I don't see enough focus on number 2. And number 2 is the cost. Like if you want a real business like eBay to run, the bids over blockchain, then cost-wise, blockchain has to make sense. Because right now, if you look at Ethereum cost and you compare Ethereum cost to centralized cost, it would be around 1,000 as expensive. Right. Like and so the value that it has to give is 1,000 times the value. And you don't see enough applications when you can give something with 1,000 times the value. And especially the eBay example that they give you does not give 1,000 times the value. So you need to reduce costs significantly. And when you talk about cost reduction, it's not only about the money that you pay, it's about the whole model. And the model here is, how do you pay the fees? One of my earlier positions, if you looked in my LinkedIn, I was the head of engineering for Kin. When Kin launched. So I sat in the first billion-dollar company that has a consumer product, and we tried to build it over blockchain. I tried to build something over blockchain, a consumer app with millions of users. And the first thing I had to do was sit down with my CFO and give him a budget, like ask for a budget for infrastructure cost. Like that's a basic thing. Like I need to plan for the next quarter, $250,000 for infrastructure cost. So you want to try to do that on a platform, please be my guest. Try to estimate how much it's going to cost you. Impossible to do. Why? Because the whole fee system is completely convoluted. How do you pay fees in Ethereum? You place a bid. Like, do you know how high it's going to be? It depends on load on the network. If there's a lot of load, it's going to be high. Less load is going to be low. So the fees are not predictable. This is a huge problem. Second of all, the fees, you pay them per transaction, usually, on Ethereum especially. Who pays these fees? The end users. When you use a mainstream app like Gmail, do you pay as a user the infrastructure fee for sending your email around? No. This company subsidizes the infrastructure costs for you. And to do something like that on many blockchains is very difficult. We try to do this actually with Kin. We try to give people Ether. And so they have enough to pay for the fees, but it's very easy to cheat you when you do that. So you need a good mechanism to subsidize the fees for your end users. So basically what we did is we redesigned the entire fee mechanism from scratch. So the fee mechanism in Orbs, it works like, and if you ask me, like, let's design a fee mechanism that's good for apps, and you don't need to invent the wheel. Like, I understand how Ethereum came to the bid per transaction. It makes sense from a game theory perspective to reduce spam. I understand Vitalik's, whoever's designed it, state of mind when they thought about it. It makes perfect sense. But when you design something for real businesses or apps, you need to think from the product perspective, not the technology perspective. Like, how do they want to pay the fees? And so here you don't need to invent the wheel. Like, go to AWS, like they figured out the product, and see how they pay fees on AWS. And how do you pay fees there? First of all, you pay them monthly, number one. And second of all, you allocate in advance the resources that you want to buy, and you want the resources dedicated for you. And this is something that very, very, very little blockchains can give you. And this is something that we do. So the whole model of virtual chains, basically what you pay for, you rent out a virtual chain. And you rent it out from the validators, and you pay for it monthly. So basically what you do, you take a bunch of Orbs tokens, and the amount of Orbs tokens that you will want to pay is directly correlated to how much resources you want. For example, the storage of your app is X, and the number of transactions per second that you want to have guaranteed to you is Y, then we would give you a price, and it will cost you 100 Orbs tokens for this month. And you would lock these tokens in a contract for a month, and the validators would see that. They would give you the service for the whole month, and at the end of the month, the tokens will be distributed to the validators, the fee. So that's how it would work. So this model is very different from, I think, most of the projects that you looked at. So ideas like this and how to make the product meaningful for apps, it sounds like we're all doing the same, but when you look at the intricacies of the solutions, you will see that things are kind of like working a little bit differently.